Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be getting started here. Thank you for joining us today. I know we had to reschedule this webinar, and we really appreciate you jumping on today to join us. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Sue McLeaf-Nispecka. She's our Every Child Ready to Read consultant here in the state of Michigan. And we're glad to have you here today, Sue.
Thank you, Kathy. And welcome, everyone. And I apologize that this had to be rescheduled. That was sort of my fault. We are going to talk today about working with early childhood educators and also volunteers that you might have in your library in regards to early literacy. So, first of all, I think it's important to remember, and I know I've probably talked about this before, but national research studies have shown that we have a significant number of children entering kindergarten without those early literacy skills that they need to have in place to learn to read. And I put this in just for fun, just for a joke. Dinosaurs didn't read and now they are extinct. Okay. So what we know is that investing time and resources in early literacy really does have long-term benefits. We know that studies have shown that high-quality early education can result in as much as a 16% annual rate of return on the initial investment. And that includes lower costs to educate children who are ready to learn and having, supplemental programs that they need to have to help them get to where they need to be, reduce crime, social problems, etc. So we know that that's important. And we know that that investment is going to begin with parents or other caregivers who can help children develop these early literacy skills. Herein lies our problem, though. We have a lot of children in our service area, our library service area, who are not coming to library story times, or who might not be coming, their parents might not be bringing them to the library. So what we're going to talk about today is how do we reach those kids, the ones who are not already coming to the library or not coming to library story times. We know that often poor preschool children and those from working class homes are less likely to have books in their homes. They're less likely to be read to frequently and at an early age, and are less likely to have opportunities to talk about books to an adult. This is important to remember because when we think about how to reach those kids who are not coming to our library, most often they are kids from the lower income families or the families that are less educated. So we have to think about how can we actually reach those people. Well, in a lot of cases, it's going to mean outreach, where we actually have to go outside of our library doors. Because there's many reasons these families that would benefit from early literacy information just don't come to the library. I know when I was doing a research project to complete my thesis for my master's in early childhood, I was trying to find out why Head Start parents did not use the public library. They could not afford to buy books, and I just couldn't understand why wouldn't they come to the library and get the books for free. Well, what I found out was that in a lot of cases, parents were afraid that their child would damage the materials, and so they didn't want to take that chance because they knew they wouldn't be able to pay for the books if they damaged them. For some of them, it was a lack of transportation. The city where I was doing this study in Ohio only had buses and things that went in the daytime. So if the parents were working, they had no transportation to get to the libraries after hours. Some just didn't have the time to get there because of working several jobs. Some people didn't have a permanent address. And in a lot of Ohio libraries at that time, they needed to have a permanent address or they couldn't get a library card. Some people didn't know what libraries had to offer. And then, of course, others just didn't know the importance of reading to their child on a daily basis. So this is the case, again, for a lot of children from lower income or low education level families, and that's why outreach can be important. By the way, that Ready to Read bus there, that is from Columbus Public Library in Ohio. They have a van that goes out and does, early literacy training. Librarians go out and do early literacy training. They have an actual bus called the Ready to Read bus, which I think is kind of cute. So the different things I'm going to talk about today, I really want some input. I really hope that you'll type in the chat box. So I'm going to ask some questions now and then, and please feel free to use the chat box. Right now in the chat box, Kathy has reminded you that there are handouts. If you look under the files below, one of them is actually the whole PowerPoint and all the slides. And then the second one is actually a handout. And a lot of this information that I have on the slides today is in the handout. So let's talk about some potential partners that maybe we could reach in our library to try to, hit some of these parents that are not already coming. So one of the things I know that some libraries do is they have some type of kindergarten readiness programs, and I'm curious to know if any of you have that. Again, please just type in the box anytime if you have some of these things I'm talking about, if you do any kind of kindergarten readiness program. So that's one thing, because a lot of times when they do the kindergarten readiness programs, they're going to be outside of the library. They might be when they're registering kids for kindergarten. So you're going to maybe meet some different people that aren't already coming to the library. So let's talk about reaching families who do not use the library. One of the ways is to reach pregnant moms. These are mothers who are, of course, expecting children, and I know a lot of times libraries will have book giveaway programs. Maybe some of you do that. Again, anytime, feel free to use the chat box if you have any of these programs. But a lot of times the library systems will give away books to parents that have just had a baby in a hospital. Personally, I think that's a little less effective than some other ways to reach these parents, because I think a lot of times many parents, new parents, receive so many materials at the hospital that when they go home with their baby, and they're so overwhelmed with taking care of the baby that they're not going to have a chance to necessarily look at all that material. So I think a lot of times it's better to maybe hit the mothers while they are pregnant. Maybe well baby classes or whatever would be a better time before they actually have the child. Okay, pediatrician's office, that's another way you can reach some of these parents not coming to the library. The pediatricians have a Reach Out and Read program, and you might want to consult with any of your local pediatricians and see if you can be part of that initiative. That'd be another way to hit some new audiences. Mothers at the WIC centers, the Women, Infants, and Children's Center, or any other child development centers, that's another place you might want to target. Teen parents, oftentimes at vocational schools or high schools, they'll have a time when, thank you, Kathy, she put the Reach Out and Read information there, we have our project, which is Every Child Ready to Read in the libraries, but the pediatricians have a project called Reach Out and Read, which is really very similar goals. Okay, so the teen parents at vocational schools or high schools, a lot of times they will have special classes for them where they're pulled aside and they'll be talking about childcare, etc. That would be a good place to maybe try to reach some of those teen parents with the importance of reading to their kids. And just, reminding them of some songs that they might remember from childhood or some rhymes, etc. Now, this one I have to admit is a little bit out there for many libraries, but there are library systems that actually reach mothers in prisons, and they have had, what they'll do a lot of times is have them record stories so that the child can actually hear their mother reading a story to them. I just want to mention it. It's just another avenue. Do any of you have bookmobiles that go directly to child care centers? Please let me know in the chat box if you do. There are times that some systems will have bookmobiles that go out actually to child care centers where the kids get on and check out books, or sometimes they even have a story time that will come to them. I know these bookmobiles sometimes will also go to housing projects. I'm just interested to know if any of you do that. I'm not seeing anything yet. Though I was kind of surprised when I was talking to a library system. This is what happens when you're not in an actual library anymore. I found out how fewer libraries are actually having bookmobiles these days. So maybe that's not as common a thing. Foster parent groups. Again, sometimes these kids are with the parents just for a limited amount of time, but it's still a time that you can reach those parents with the importance of reading and singing and sharing rhymes with the kids. Some libraries have had success by doing projects directly with churches or religious or faith-based groups. And then also outreach to families whose first language is not English. Because libraries can seem very intimidating to these families. And they might feel that libraries do not have materials or services for them. So, you want to try to reach some of these groups, but of course you want to make sure that you have multilingual materials in your library before you reach out to these groups. So the focus of today, though, is we're going to talk more about reaching early childhood educators and also volunteers. We're going to start out talking about early childhood educators, and then we're going to talk about different little trainings that you could do for the early childhood educators and also any volunteers you might have at your library. But let's start out with the early childhood educators. Now, again, some of these different services I'm going to talk about, if any of you do any of this, I really, really would appreciate if you type it in the chat box. Some of these services I'm going to talk about, again, this is all in the handout. Thematic storytime kits. I would really be interested in knowing if anyone has that. There's sometimes libraries will have, like books in a bag, for instance, where they check out, the early childhood people can check out these bags and they'll be in a certain theme, or maybe sometimes they're in a box, whatever, but there's a certain theme. And someone's typing finally. Megan's going to share something. I can't believe some of you don't have thematic storytime kits. Now, I have to tell you, the one library system, the last library system I worked at, we had thematic storytime kits, but we also had a whole separate project where I dropped off, and this was through grant funding, where I dropped off a whole big Tupperware container of stuff, and it wasn't necessarily thematic because it was going to sit at that center for an entire month, and nobody wants to do the same theme for an entire month. And in that Tupperware container, there were quality books for the different ages that would be at the center. I did have some that were thematically ranged in case I didn't want to do a theme. There'd be puppets in there, musical CDs, other realia, little sheets with finger plays and ideas. And again, those kits would stay there for an entire month. Then we would go back and pick them up inside the Tupperware lid. We have a list of everything that was in that kit, and we had to always make sure that the materials were in there before we picked up the kit and took it back to the library. Now, Megan says we have, hold on a second here, I'm going to go back. We have kits with the book, an information sheet, and either puppet or prop. Very good. And then Kathy has something about foster care in Michigan, how to find your different agencies. That's good. Thank you, Kathy. Megan's also saying we have felt board kits and a list of puppets we circulate on their own. Very good. And see, those are really helpful resources for these early childhood people. So that's very good that you have that. Okay, again, we talked about bookmobiles or van visits to centers. Again, this is Columbus Public. They go right to the centers and they're ready to read van. I'm sorry, I went too fast. Let me go back here a minute. I apologize. Okay, housing materials at centers. Now, I don't know if people do this so much anymore or not, but I know there are some libraries that will actually maybe house materials, for instance, at Head Start Center, like the main Head Start Center, so the Head Start teachers could check out the materials. Again, I know we think everyone should come to our library to check these things out, and that's just not always the reality. So some libraries have put some collections of things there. They change them again monthly or so every so often, and that way that the Head Start teachers can, go right to that main center, pick up books that they can use, and have some good quality books. And Susan's asking, and you can start typing.
Sue, just...
Yes. Go ahead.
Sue, your mic is going a little in and out. I don't know if you're moving around or bumping it.
Okay, I'll try to be
words.
Oh, I'll try to be more careful. I'm sorry. Thank you. Susan's asking whether anyone has success with amnesty for fines, and has this increased CIRC. I think that's a good question that Susan is asking right now, because again, when we're thinking of some of these families that are worried about fines, and that's why they don't want to check out books, some of these families, this would be a concern. So I think that's a good question. Megan's saying we don't charge fines. And then Linda's asking about the replacement cost of missing materials. And when Linda asked that, that's another thing that I had happen with those kits I was telling you that we circulated to the centers. Sometimes, and it didn't happen often. Actually, I think there was really only one center that when I went to pick up those Tupperware kits at the end of the month, there was all kinds of things missing. And after they did that for a couple, we didn't charge them, but after that happened for a couple months, we just had to kind of drop them off in our list, and we couldn't deliver to them anymore because they just wouldn't return the materials. Again, that was in relation to us dropping off kits at centers. I think you'll probably get some other answers. Megan says, for our kits, they were purchased through a grant, and we do not charge for missing pieces. We haven't had too many issues. I never had too many issues either. Sometimes if you have toys with very small pieces that are easy to lose, that can be a problem. So I was always kind of careful about not ordering those types of things. I tried to find, I guess, more educational things that were larger pieces. There wouldn't be so many problems with that. This is a good topic, so keep typing. I'm going to keep going, but keep typing. I think that's a very good topic. Library teacher collections. I'm sure a lot of you have this in your library where you might just have a certain area that's really good with resources for early childhood people. By the way, when I was talking about that center that kept a lot of materials, in every one of those Tupperware kits, we would always have a nice resource book, say like a book of 1001 finger plays or whatever. And those resource books are very expensive. We're talking $60, $70 for a resource book, maybe even more now. And those were the books that they usually did not return in the kit, the one center that we had to drop off. So, some of these resource materials are very expensive, and so having them in your library where they can check them out is a really good thing. I'm going to go back to the chat box a minute. What about damages? We have quite a lot of damaged materials. Well, I don't know that anyone answered that yet. Linda said, where did you obtain the grants? So Megan's going to probably be answering some of that as we move on to newsletters. I don't know how many, and again, if anyone does a newsletter regularly for their early childhood people, I used to do one quarterly. And it would just, it would highlight like new books that I got to the library that I thought were good for sharing, like story time or sharing with young children. It was seasonal. It might have some finger plays that related to that season. And then, of course, it also had the programs that we offered. So that's something you can do that is not a huge time thing, but if you mail that out, or you could actually, if they have email addresses, you can send it through email this day and age. But having those type of newsletters is just another great thing to do for early childhood people. Megan, is saying that she got her grant through our Great Start Collaborative. And Kathy is telling you that small grants will open again at Library of Michigan. I don't think what that was. I'm sure she means the state library this spring. Interrupt Kathy if you want. Kathy, do you want to say anything about those grants?
Sure. So we just did them this past year for the first time in quite a long time. They're small grants. They're quick and easy to apply for, and they include literacy programs. So, these kits would be a perfect example of that, and they range from anywhere from, I think it's, you can get $500 to $2,000.
That's wonderful. And, again, you could get resources that could circulate to these early childhood educators, so that's wonderful. So you might want to think about that. She said that's coming up again this spring. Okay, we're still talking about resources for early childhood people. Okay, this is the one we're going to focus on most today and the remaining time, and that is actually doing a workshop for early childhood educators, and I will also include volunteers under this category. You could also do it for them. So either the early childhood educators, the daycare people, the Head Start people, volunteers, whatever. What you're looking at there is actually a picture. This is a library at San Antonio, and they do ongoing training for their early childhood people, and they have a lot of hands-on things they have them do. So that's actually a picture showing a workshop that they are having for their early childhood educators. Excuse me. Okay. So let's talk about this. Oh, Kathy, I meant to ask you this before, so you're going to have to you're going to have to come in. I meant to ask this before, and I apologize that I didn't. I know that Kathy actually purchased a certain number of, I guess you'd call them subscriptions, to this new publication that came out from the American Library Association. It was a toolkit for serving early childhood educators. I know she bought so many for the state. Kathy, have you given out all those or not?
Yes, we bought 100, and they're all gone.
Okay.
So sorry.
Okay, I know. I should have asked you before. Well, if you did get one of those, by the way, I am not going to cover everything that's in there by any means. In fact, what I'm covering might be what I would call a more simplified workshop. In that particular publication, which is excellent, by the way, it goes into a lot more detail. So you have to kind of consider your audience and how much you want to use. Do you want to go into a lot of detail, or do you want to keep it more simplified? But that particular publication, if you did not already get it from Kathy at the State Library, they're still selling copies. I think I'm trying to read, I think it's $99 it looks like. But again, it's going to go into a lot more detail than what I'm going to talk about today. However, I do have things that are in, I didn't use their exact slides, but I have information that is in that publication in my thing here today. Yeah, $99 at ALA, thank you. Now, first of all, before you do any kind of workshop, there's two places that you need to look for your state standards. And don't worry about copying this down. Again, it's in that handout. But the first one that you're seeing is your Early Childhood Standards of Quality for Infant and Toddler Programs that was done by the Michigan State Board of Education. It was revised in 2013. So what you might want to do is look at that. Now, again, this is for infant and toddler programs. You might want to look at that and see what do they have, what kind of standards are they trying to meet in regards to early literacy, and how can you help with that? Because they need to meet those standards. So that's something you want to look at. Now, I did look at your standards, by the way, but I decided not to go through all that because, again, I only have an hour. But there are a lot of places that the early literacy training and the Every Child Ready to Read project is going to hit dead on with not only those standards, but also these. This is Michigan's pre-kindergarten education program, I guess they call it. Again, the link is in your handout, and these are your early childhood standards of quality that are done for pre-kindergarten, also revised in March of 2013, originally done in 2005. So again, these standards, are very important to look at when you are trying to establish relationships or partnerships with early childhood educators. If you can show them where you are directly hitting their standards that they need to go by, that's going to make for a much more, what I would call, fruitful partnership, because they know you're both on the same page, basically. Now, I think this next slide is the one, yes. Okay, I don't know what happened. Kathy and I tried to work on this. There's a couple slides, for whatever reason, are not showing. And again, she put the whole document up there. If you wanted to, you could download it all. But I can tell you what was on this slide. What it was Head Start standards. And in the Head Start standards, they talk directly about phonological awareness and print awareness. And these are all the terms that we're talking about in the Every Child Ready to Read project. So in the training with Every Child Ready to Read, you are directly hitting some of the Head Start standards. And that's what I was trying to show you in that particular slide. So let's talk about content. Again, that publication that Kathy has there in the chat box, a digital copy, $99. Some of you already have it. Again, that's going to go into a lot more detail. I'm going to get, because they go into a lot more technical terms, I guess you would say. I'm going to give you a more simplified version of some of the things that I would include in a workshop if I were doing it for early childhood educators or people who volunteer at the library. So here we go. First of all, again, this is optional. You can talk about this or not talk about it. I usually like talking about brain development because I feel that if they understand why these early years are so important, that the early literacy will just fall right in place after that. So I talk about how it's not nature, it's not nurture, it's both nature and nurture that's going to decide how a baby's brain is developed. And something as simple as peekaboo actually is firing synapses in the brain. Now, again, you can go into as much information on this as you want, but it fires synapses in the brain. The number of synapse connections that a child has determines really how bright they are, which can be seen here. This is a chart of brain development. By a year old, if you see all that, well, it's dark. If you saw it in color, it would be like yellow or orange. That's showing a brain that's very, very, very active. Now, if you look at the 28 years, you see it's not as active, and that's because, you know, eventually some of these synaptic connections are pruned, which is natural. They're supposed to be pruned. But that's why it's easier for younger children to learn new information than what it is for someone like me, who is definitely middle-aged here, the upper part of middle age, I guess. I don't know how far middle age goes these days, but it's going to be harder for me to learn a new topic at my level than what it would be for a very young child to, because their brain is much more active. Also shown here. At birth, this is again neurons, and you see the synaptic connections. You can see at 6 years old, what an active brain. But look where the pruning already occurs at like age 14. Now, it doesn't go all downhill. I mean, there's still synaptic connections that are fired even when you're older, but it's just harder to learn new materials the older we get. Okay, 2 more slides that aren't showing. These are the last 2, I promise you. What this one showed was that there are risk factors related to brain development. For example, trauma, neglect, maternal depression, substance abuse, exposure to environmental toxins, even poverty can be a risk factor for brain development. The next slide showed the plasticity of the brain and the difference between a healthy child and a neglected child. Unfortunately, I can't show you that, but if you download the presentation, you can see it there. So if you are doing a workshop for early childhood educators or volunteers, when I say your role, I'm not talking about your role as a librarian. I'm talking about what you would tell them that their role is. And so what you want to do is tell them that they can make a huge difference in their children's early literacy development. Children learn best by doing. They love doing things with caring adults. Their development is going to happen through interactions with caring adults in their environment. So you can really stress how important their role is. Then they'll probably tell you they're not getting paid well for that role, and I will agree with that. That's one of our terrible sins in society, where a lot of these early childhood people are not getting paid hardly anything for the responsibility they have. Okay, so then the other thing you want to do is talk about early literacy and to actually define it. What is early literacy? Early literacy is what children know about communication and language and reading and writing. Actually, it's what they know about reading and writing before they can read and write. That's early literacy. And you want to stress to the early childhood educators or these volunteers that it's not the teaching of reading, because a lot of people will think that that's a good thing. They want to get hooked on phonics products and things like that. It's not the teaching of reading. It's simply laying the foundation so that when children are formally taught to read, they are ready. And if you did go to any of the Every Child Ready to Read workshops that I did in the state of Michigan the last 2 years, I talked about this a lot, that it's laying the foundation. These early years, it's laying the foundation, just like you're going to build a house. If you build a house and that foundation is not there, the house is not going to stand well. But if you have the foundation there, the house is going to be strong, okay? And so that's what they need to do. They're simply laying that foundation down so that when kids get to school, they can actually, they have the skills in place that they need to have to learn to read and write. And then you tell the early childhood people that they need to encourage their parents that have kids in their centers to use the language they know best. So if it's Spanish, speak to them in Spanish. When they get to school, they will have to learn how to translate those words, but it's better for them to have the words in their database. I call it the word database in their brain. So that's just a reminder for those early childhood people. Okay. I hope all of you have been to some type of Every Child Ready to Read training. Basically, if you think about it, there was a first edition and a second edition. The manuals you have are the second edition. However, I think it's very important to know the terminology from the first edition. So, any training that you are going to do for early childhood educators, I would definitely go through the 6 skills and the 5 practices. I think it's both important because the practices by themselves do not give enough information about these skills that kids need to have. So that is what I would do. I would go through the 6 skills and the 5 practices. Now, I don't know, maybe Kathy can type in the link. If you have not been to any of the Every Child Ready to Read workshops that I did in the state of Michigan, and I will not be doing any more. This is the 2nd year of the grant, and we're getting here to the tail end of it. But those webinars, you have access to those. So if you've not attended the original, I mean, I did them live, but then we also had webinars. And so one of the first webinars, probably, I'm forgetting because it was the beginning of last year, not this year. But one of those webinars was just some basic Every Child Ready to Read training. And so you could go back, if you've not had that training, you can go back, and I'll probably remind people of this again in the last webinar I do, but you can go back and hear this terminology again, because I'm going to go through it quicker today, but if you want more information, you could go back and get that information from the webinar that we did, probably the first webinar I did, which would have been sometime the beginning of 2016. And Kathy has given you she's giving you the link for the webinars. Okay, so you would go through these 6 skills. The first one being print motivation. That's the child's interest in and enjoyment of books. We want children to love books. We want them to pick up books, to look at books and turn them page by page, even if they aren't even reading yet. So if a child has a love of books, that is a very important early literacy skill. Print awareness is noticing print. It's noticing environmental print. It's noticing print in books. It's knowing how to handle a book. It's knowing how to follow the words in a book, that we read from top to bottom and not from bottom to top. It's knowing that we turn pages from right to left, but we read left to right. So we turn right, left, read left, right. All those things is part of print awareness. This is, again, examples of what I would tell these early childhood people. Again, I'm going through this quicker, but you can look back at the webinar and it'll have more information. Vocabulary is knowing the names of things, and so that is making sure that children have what I call this big database of words up in their head. And so what we want to do is we want to define words in context. Like if there is a rare or unusual word in a storybook that you're reading, all you do is simply define it in context. Like in Caps for Sale, once there was a peddler. Well, what's a peddler? Just explain it briefly. So vocabulary, very important. And the reason it's so important is so that when kids get to school, if they encounter a new word and they don't know what it is, they have to sound it out. If that word isn't already up in their database, they're not going to know what it is. If they've heard of the word and sound it out, they might be able to better figure out what that word is and remember then what the meaning of it is. Letter knowledge, knowing that letters are different from each other, they have different names, and they have different sounds. So the letter B we're seeing there, it's important for kids to know that that B makes a B sound. So giving, I know I've said this before, giving kids, making sure these young children all have a set of alphabet letters is very important. And when you're talking to these early childhood educators, make sure that they realize this. They definitely should have alphabet letters in their center. Things that the kids they can not only be maybe blocks, they could be little puzzles, alphabet puzzles, whatever. Very important. Narrative skills is the ability to describe things and events and to tell stories. And a lot of times kids do not have a lot of opportunity to use narrative skills. So it's important to tell early childhood educators that they need to give kids opportunities to do this. And we're going to talk more about that later, so I'm not going to be repetitious. We'll get to that later. Okay, phonological awareness is the ability to hear and play with the smaller sounds and words. I always like to tell early childhood people there's 3 parts of phonological awareness they should know. Number 1 is phonological awareness is knowing what words rhyme. So that cat and bat rhyme, but cat and dog do not rhyme. As I sit here looking at my cat curled up close to me, that's a good example to use because I'm looking at my cat. But cat and bat rhyme, cat and dog don't. Second, to know how to take words apart and put them back together. So the word baseball, we could take it apart. Base, ball, baseball. Put it back together. Taking words apart, being able to put them back together. Smaller sounds and words. The third thing is knowing the sound that a letter makes. So that the letter D makes a sound of D, D. Knowing those sounds. That's all part of phonological awareness. When kids arrive at school, if they have trouble reading, most often it is with phonological awareness. That's where their problems are. So that phonological awareness obviously is very important. So after you go through those 6 skills, then I would talk about the 5 practices. These 5 practices are important because you want to tell early childhood educators that these are things that they should be doing with their kids on a daily basis. On a daily basis. These are important for daily interactions. Again, I'm going to go through this first part quicker because it is in an archived webinar. You can get more information. I don't want to go over things that you've heard maybe several times before. But what those 5 practices are talking, singing, reading, writing, and playing. So we know that children learn a lot about language when they listen to adults talk and when they also have that opportunity to join in the conversation. Children who are raised in high language households have IQ scores that are 38 points higher than kids who are brought up in low language homes. This is from testing for kindergarten. So again, sharing of language, talking, very important. So when we talk with kids, we want to use new words. We want to take turns, give them an opportunity, and make connections for them so they can understand what those words mean. And then I would talk to them about how books are wonderful conversation starters. And you can give examples there. I know in a previous workshop I talked about picture book walks, where you hold up the book and you say to the kids, what do you think this book's about? Just from simply looking at the cover. Or you might read a page and say, and what do you think happened next? Having the kids get involved in the conversation. Then we move on to singing. Songs are a natural way to learn about language. I know you've heard this before if you've been to any of my workshops or heard any of the webinars. In singing, there is one note for every syllable in a word. So if you look at Mary, so there's 2 syllables in the word Mary, and you see there's 2 different notes. Look at little, same thing. It's the same note, but it is a different note. So when they're singing songs, it's wonderful for phonological awareness because it's breaking those words apart so they can hear the smaller sounds. And then we want to talk about reading with children, how that's the single most important way to help them get ready to read. And you want to encourage them to read to their kids on a daily basis, probably in what they would call, so often they don't usually call it story time, they call it circle time. Reading develops vocabulary and it develops comprehension. And reading also helps children learn those less common words. That's because when picture book authors write picture books, there are 9 times as many rare words than what they encounter in conversation. So that's why reading picture books is going to introduce them to a lot of words that are less common. And then when we tell them that, what you want to tell them is that when we're talking about early literacy is not just reading, it's also writing. So we want to give children an opportunity in their centers to be able to have writing experiences. Again, we're going to talk more about that momentarily. You could show this slide or you wouldn't have to. This is a slide that just shows the development of writing skills, how they start making marks, and then how they start drawing and writing together. They make those round faces. Then they start writing their name, and then eventually words. And then the final practice is playing. There's a lot of early childhood centers that will feel that playing is not that important. They want to stress academic skills, and that is a mistake, particularly if they're drilling those kids. Playing is extremely important. Kids learn so much about language and everything else through play. So you need to encourage them and tell them how important play is if they don't already know that. Pretend play, dramatic play, and even constructive play, like with Legos and Duplos and Lincoln Logs and any other kinds of blocks. All that helps develop language skills. All right, so we're going to go through those 5 practices again. And what I like to do in a workshop for the early childhood people is I go through the 5 practices and give an example of how they can use books to help with these practices. So when we talk about talking, one of the things I like to mention is the importance of using participation books. And by the way, if any of you have a favorite participation book, please type it in the chat box. What's your favorite book for kids to be able to participate while you're telling a story in story time? What's your favorite participation book? This is probably still one of mine. I know it's older, but I still love it. I love to sing it. I ain't gonna paint no more, no more. I ain't gonna paint no more. That's what I say, but there ain't no way that I ain't gonna paint no more. So I take some red and I paint my... And before I turn the page so they can see what it is, I pause and see if they can supply the rhyming word, which in this case is head. So using participation books is wonderful, but I think you need to show these volunteers and early childhood people, how to use participation books and why participation books are important. And I don't see a single person typing their favorite participation book. You must have something that you use in story time. Oh, well, Kathy's going to add one here, I think. That's good. Dog's Colorful Day. Yes, they can join in that one. Oh, that's still one of my absolute favorite books, and that's another oldie but goodie. And it's also wonderful to make into a flannel or magnetic board. Okay, have children help retell stories. If you did see me present, I bring along my paper bag puppets that I have kids act out the little red hen. But just in any way, they can act out Goldilocks and the Three Bears. But just having them act out or help retell the stories. Okay, any of your favorite song picture books, whether it be Pete the Cat. I think most of the early childhood educators know about Pete the Cat now, but just in case they don't, you might want to introduce that. Or the same author, Eric, the same author, Eric, let me rephrase that. The author of the early Pete the Cat books, because we all know now about the little fallout that those two guys had between I think you know about the fallout that the author and illustrator had. The original Pete Cat books were written by Eric Litwin and were and then illustrated by James Dean, and then they had a falling out, and so now James Dean is doing his own books, but some of the stories are just not as powerful as the ones that Eric Litwin wrote. So Eric started doing his own books, and there's several ones, but the Nut books. There's also the Dinosaurs Love Ice Cream. The Nuts Sing and Dance in Your Polka Dot Pants is very catchy. It gets kids up. Not only are they participating, but they're going to love singing along. And then I also show them some books that maybe lend themselves, books that you can read, but then lend themselves to songs, where you can connect back to songs. And one of those would be the one that came out, I think it was last year. I don't think it was this year. I'm losing track of my years. I think it was last year, but I could be wrong. It was Denise Fleming's Five Little Ducks, which is a little bit of a twisted version of that, but then after you read the book, you could actually sing the song that relates to that. And then when you're talking about reading, I think it's something, let's see, wait a second. Megan's saying almost any counting book, my truck is stuck. Yes, that's a wonderful for participation. You're right. Okay, when we're talking about reading, I like to remind them of using easy nonfiction books, particularly some of those that kind of read like a story, which iFly does. I love that book because it's just funny and it reads like a story. And then one that came across my desk a couple weeks ago, came out this year. I haven't reviewed it yet in the newsletter I do for you guys in Michigan. I might one of these days. It's about bees. It's called Give Bees a Chance. And it's by the author who wrote I'm Trying to Love Spiders. But it's all about bees, but it's really funny. It not only will they learn little facts, but when you read it, it's a funny book. It's a great book for anyone that doesn't know what role that bees play in our world, and they really do. Besides making honey, they have a lot of other. They help plants grow fruits. They help grow vegetables. And it's just a great book. And before I recommended it, I belong to our chorus. I live in the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania area, and I belong to our civic chorus. And our our guy who's the director has multi-talents. He's a school teacher. He teaches music. He has his own rock group, and he's also a beekeeper. And I gave him this book, and he just gave it back to me last night at chorus, and I told him to review it. I said, you got to review this for me because I want to make sure everything's factual. Everything's factual except for one thing, but the one thing that's not factual is not a harm to the book, and he really liked it. But it's just my new favorite little nonfiction book for young kids that is just fun to read. Okay, writing. Again, finding books that maybe even talk about writing, like Dear Mrs. LaRue, that's a little bit better for the older kids. Click, Clack, Moo. I know some libraries will put out typewriters. Kids don't even know what typewriters are, of course, and they sit there and type, and they're fascinated by it. But books that will lend themselves to writing are good. Also, when it comes to writing, you can have kids draw a picture because, again, they're learning the skills of how to hold the crayon or how to hold the pencil or how to hold the colored pencil, whatever it is that they're using. So that's a skill that they're also going to need with writing. So drawing a picture after hearing a story is good. This is a story about a boy who wants a pet for his birthday, and every family member tries to give him another pet, but the actual pet that he wants. So it's a fun book. It's done in rhyme, so that's good for phonological awareness. And then I have the kids afterwards draw a picture of what their favorite pet would be. So again, they're getting to use those muscles, that small muscle motor development that they need for their writing skills. And playing, again, I like to emphasize to the early childhood people about acting out stories. I will a lot of times show them some of the wonderful stuff they can get online. For instance, and I think I gave that another webinar. I did not put it in your handout today, but in my handout I have my email address. If you were not at the other webinar where I talked about this, there are a couple sites where you can just download in color pictures that you could use for a flannel board or magnetic board story on popular children's books. There's several websites, and if you don't know where those are, I can easily give you those. If you email me, I can give you those. And I like to show those sites. I should have thought about this for this handout and I forgot, but I like to show those sites to early childhood educators. But I also show them like Denise Fleming's site and of course Jan Brett's site, which is just like a wealth of information. Those patterns that you're looking at there, I'm sure you probably already know this. This is from the story The Mitten. That sheet's supposed to be like the glove. And the kids are under there, they're crawling into the mitten. And of course, you can download it. They're done in color. As long as you have a color printer, you just download them. And I have those patterns. And what I do is, not sure. No, they didn't do that this way, but I'll tell you what I do. What they did was just download them, and then what I do at least is I rubber cement them to poster board, and then I just cut them out once so it's a little bit sturdier, and I'll put them on like paint stirrers. If you know what a paint stirrer is, like you go to Sherwin-Williams or one of those places, and sometimes they'll give you the paint stirrers, sometimes you have to buy them, but I just fasten the puppets to a paint stirrer and it makes like a puppet then. So, acting those out. Jan Brett has, like I said, she has just tons of things on her web page where you can just download the patterns. Does anyone else know of any other authors? I know Denise Fleming has a lot on her website. Does anyone else know of any other authors that has a lot of materials that they can... Kathy actually put the animals in the mitten. She found it on Jan Brett's website. And Kathy, you might know someone else too. Are there any other authors that you can think of that have a lot of downloadable materials? I think Jan Brett's just really well known for this. But Autumn is typing something, so we might find another one. Oh, and so is Megan. Oh, good. Oh, Mel Willems. Thank you. Yes, I think he does have a lot of good stuff you can download. Thank you. Anybody else know of any other ones? Megan was also trying to type Mo. Okay, good. Well, if anybody knows of anyone else, put them out there. I just think I love to see authors have those sites because I think it's really helpful. All right. Now, the next thing you're seeing here, this slide, there is an actual handout for this in that handout packet if you print it off. This is not my handout. This is the only thing in that packet I think that's not mine. It's actually from the Every Child Ready to Read manual. But, you might not have noticed it in there, but it's a wonderful handout for early childhood educators. And it goes through all the 5 practices and tells them how they can emphasize that, I guess you would say, within their centers. For instance, and again, this is in your handout. I'm just hitting a couple highlights from the handout. Places to talk. They say, here's 10 chances to chat during the day with kids. Daily routines, during cleanup, during activity time, during transitions, before naps, during meals, out on a walk, circle time, during shared reading times, and when doing projects together. So that's 10 different ideas for them to find more ways to interact with the kids and talking. Under singing, they stress that you don't need a perfect voice, just be enthusiastic, and they give out 2 music sites. www.freesongsforkids.com is one of them. They talk about how they should have the kids move to the music, how you can sing nursery rhymes instead of reading them, etc. Under places to read, they say about how it's important to talk about the books you've read, have a special place in your center for children to look at books and find books, and make reading part of your routine each and every day. Under places to write, they talk about setting up an area where the kids can go on their own and use writing materials. You provide pencils, crayons, markers, different sizes, unlined paper. Have them start writing letters, for instance. Show examples of making lists and thank you notes and having them dictate things. And finally, places to play. It says about how you don't need special toys or expensive electronics. You can provide inexpensive props like large boxes, old clothes, costumes, empty food containers, paper shopping bags, empty paper towel rolls, etc., etc. So that particular handout, if you were doing a workshop, I would just download it. If you don't have the Every Child Ready to Read manual, or you don't want to go through and search it, it is in my handout. You can just download that, and that would be a good thing to give to them. Now, also in your handout, and some of these things we already talked about, but in your handout, and of course I don't have one in front of me, but it's something I have in there that's called 33 Ways to Promote Early Literacy at Your Childhood Center. Something like that is the title of it. And it's 33 tips for them. And you have my permission to download that too. If you don't mind just keeping my name on the bottom of it, I'd appreciate it. But you can hand that out to them. And it talks about different tips. It's another tip thing to promote early literacy in their centers. I'm not going to talk about every single one because some of these I talked about several times, but read aloud to children often, allow time for them to tell stories, have that writing center, have an area where it's going to encourage them to play, dramatic play or constructive play. We haven't talked about the word wall, but labeling objects. Good preschool centers will have different objects in their room labeled. Clapping out syllables to the words. Again, another one we haven't talked about yet. They can give tips for parents to do at home for early literacy. We talked about alphabet letters. Using wordless books, you might want to demo how to do that. A lot of people are afraid of wordless books. Having a library corner. Okay, so just a few things there. Again, in my handout, there's 33 different ideas, so you can go through that. And then the last thing I like to do when I'm talking to early childhood educators is I like to give them a little bit of training on story time. Now again, that's not in that digital download that we talked about earlier. This is just my thing. I just think sometimes because we're experts at sharing books and using voices, that it's wonderful for us to model how to do story times so that they can do that with their kids. And so that's always part of my workshop that I do with early childhood educators. One of the things I like to do is share new titles that are good choices, because they're not going to see these new titles. That's why it's important for you to point them out. I tell them that, and I do this in story time, by the way. I know I mentioned this before. Every single story time I ever did at a public library, I always had one book where they could participate. There was always one participation story. I like to provide books that employ rhyme, songs. When I'm sharing an alphabet book, I have the letters right next to me in my magnetic board, and when I'm holding up the book, I would point to the letters on the magnetic board. So I give them training on some of these different things. So let's just quickly look here in the last couple minutes we have left today, which isn't too many. Again, I would show them some examples, and when I'm showing them examples, I might use like one, what I call my favorite, kind of it could be an oldie but a goodie, but it's my favorite. But then I also like to show them a newer book. And this came out in 2017. It's called Go Sleep in Your Own Bed. It's by Candace Fleming. And there's a lot of chances for kids to join in and participate with the repetitious refrain, etc. It's just a great story time choice. And it's one you could recommend for bedtime reading to parents. Phonological Awareness, if you're not aware of this, Lori Berkner this year released the book related to her song, "We Are the Dinosaurs, Marchin', Marchin', We Are the Dinosaurs. What do you think of that?" Now, that old McDonald, that might be from last year. But again, I like to show them some new song picture books that are good, that they might want to share. This came out this year. It's the alphabet. It's LM. Let me start again. It's LMNO Pequel. So instead of a sequel, I think that's very clever, by the way. LMNO Pequel. And if you remember all the LMNO books, if you haven't seen this one already, which you probably have, but the first one went through the uppercase letters. Then there was one that went through numbers. Then there was one that went through colors. Then there was one that went through the months of the years. Now this is the Pequel. It's like the sequel, and it looks just like the original book, where the P's have all different jobs, I guess you would say. But this time, it's the lowercase letters. I mean, how smart this is. I just think it's wonderful. So if you didn't get that one yet, make sure you get it. Todd Parr, this was kind of similar to his book, It's Okay to Be Different, but it's a new one he did this year called Be Who You Are. And he's really tells children they need to embrace their individuality, no matter what that might be. Of course, it's his bright colors, etc. And then as far as acting out stories, Jerry Pinkney has a new one on the Three Billy Goats Gruff. It is not violent, like some Three Billy Goats Gruff might be. And again, that's the one folk tale that I find kids just don't know. So I think that's a good one to act out with the kids. You can share the book and act it out with them. I think that's the end of my thing today. If anyone has any questions or any comments about doing presentations for early childhood people, I'm just showing you what I like to do. Again, there's that digital download. It's a little bit more technical. It doesn't have in there about story time training. That's just something that I like to add. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. You can put something in the chat box or let me know. I just want to tell you one other thing, and that is the last webinar that I'll be doing. And by the way, I hope you're still looking at my newsletters that come out monthly. I have, what month is this? October. I have 3 more newsletters to do for you, October, November, December. And that'll be my farewell. But I'm doing one more webinar that's November 28th. That's going to be a little bit of a recap. It's going to be talking about, I'm not going to go over all the information again, but I'm just going to talk about some of the different things that are on the webinars in case you didn't get to sit through some of those before. Talk a little bit about Very Ready Reading Program, but probably the thing I'm going to highlight the most is supercharged story times, because that's kind of a hot topic right now, and it relates almost directly to Every Child Ready to Read. There's a lot of the same terminology. So if you heard of supercharged story times and you don't know what it's about, you can attend that webinar. Now, Megan has a question. We have a lot of older ladies who want to volunteer. Suggestions for ways to gently train them. Megan, and anyone else can weigh in on this. I would probably stick to more of, like shown and participation books that they can use with kids, because that emphasize talking. I would show them some of the things that they're going to be able to relate to. I would model some things to them maybe, more than get into a lot of the terminology. Maybe you don't want to get into all the 6 skills. Maybe you just want to talk about the practices, the talking, singing, reading, writing, and playing, and then just kind of model a couple things that they could do to help with those things. I would probably keep it more simple that way. I think sometimes it might be harder for some of the people to understand some of that other terminology. If anyone else has any other ideas, please add to it. Any other questions or comments before we close? And Megan's typing something else, so is Autumn, so we're going to wait a minute to see what they have to offer. I agree, and they just, I agree, and they just want to come and read. See, this is the thing. If you even get across to them the importance of singing and why it's important to sing because of the syllables, and if you get across the importance of talking and why participation books are good, if you even get across a couple of those simple little things, I think that'd be good. And that's the thing about that digital download. I love that digital download, but I really think it's better for the upper echelon. In other words, like the heads of the Head Start and things like that. I think it gets into a lot of detail. So, you have to decide who your audience is and what's best to how far you want to share it. Autumn, thanks for the helpful tips. I'm just like, oh, great, thank you. Anybody else, any questions or anything? Kathy, I don't know if you want to weigh in. Again, that next webinar, the very last one, will be November 28th, also at 2 o'clock p.m. Again, the main focus is going to be on the supercharged story times. But otherwise, I think I'm done for today. Kathy, if you have anything to add.
No, thanks to everyone for attending, and we look forward to having you back here with us on November 28th. And thank you, Sue, for all the information today. Don't forget to download those files on the bottom right of your screen, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yes.